Hi, everybody, and welcome again to the Musical Innertube. I am Don Rooney.
And I'm John Payne.
And John, we return Julie McKelvey as a guest today. As you may remember, Julie is a person who is attempting to climb the 7 highest peaks in the world. And when last we talked to her, she was about to scale Mount Denali up in Alaska. So, Julie, we wanted to welcome you back to the Innertube. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Welcome.
And we wanted to ask you, how did it go when you headed out for Alaska?
Well, I did not make the summit, but it was still successful for me. I don't remember if I mentioned this the last time we spoke, but or where that was in relation to me leaving for the climb. But 11 days before I left, my last big training hike, I was up at Hawk Rock with a 60-pound pack and I fell. I had my normal mountain boots on instead of my big, huge mountain boots that I had been training in, and I slipped and fell and wrecked my ankle pretty bad. And got down from there and started working immediately with physical therapists and to try to get it back into shape. And at that point, I thought it was just a bad sprain. So I never had it x-rayed, and we worked very aggressively to get the swelling down. And instead of resting it, we took an aggressive approach of training on it right away. And by the time I got there was weather delays, so we couldn't get into the mountain right away. And it was feeling okay. I mean, it was still swollen and all that kind of stuff. But then once we started to get up, I got up to about Camp 3 and on the really steep ice when you're on crampons and rope to other people. And I couldn't get my foot to turn the way that you have to. I was up on my toe and I was like, wow, I think this ankle might be a problem now. So we got up to almost to Camp 3. We were caching supplies on the mountain, and we were about 8 days in. And I had not told my guide that I was injured. I hadn't told anybody that I was injured because to be honest, I didn't want anybody telling me I couldn't go. It's just the same reason I didn't get it x-rayed. Anyway, long story around all that. But the guide, I told him what had happened, and he's watching me try to maneuver my feet, and he knows what's coming ahead, which is the really difficult part on this upper mountain. And we had to make the call and turn around, and that was incredibly difficult. But then I came home and had my foot x-rayed and found out it was broken, and it was broken from the training fall. It was broken the entire time. So there's no way I could have made it up there, but
there's so much in this story that, I'm sitting here writhing in my chair, Julie, and I just want to, just give you just tons of credit. I mean, so you have what you don't know is a broken foot, right, but it's broken. And you're looking up at this, you're standing at the base of this mountain, and you're thinking, okay, let's do this. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I just want to say that's amazing. I mean, you knew something was going on with your ankle, right?
For sure. I was icing it in the tent every night. I was putting, gathering snow from outside the tent and putting it in a bag and icing it down every night. So I definitely knew. Yeah.
Is it your impression that a lot of hikers climb with injuries? I mean, I know a lot of other athletes perform with injuries. Do mountain climbers do the same thing?
Well, apparently, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's so funny because I was so geared up for this, and I trained for 14 months, and I think what I did without even realizing it was I pushed that injury so far out of my mind as an obstacle. It never occurred to me that I would not summit that mountain. It never occurred to me. I was like, okay, I have this thing, and I was 3 people bailed on the second day. And these are people that were, experienced. One of them had done Everest, and it's that hard, they just were like, we're out. And so it was down to me and this guy, David, who had just flown from Nepal. He had done Everest, and Denali was his 7th summit. And the guy's a machine. He had frostbitten feet. Barely got cleared to climb. And so now I end up with this guy in a tent, and I'm looking at this guy, taking care of his feet at night, and he can't even feel his feet. And I'm like, I got this little ankle thing. Like, I'm fine. Like, this guy, he's going, I'm going, And so I, was comparing myself to him and saying, okay, I can totally do this. But so it never occurred to me that I wouldn't make the top. And looking back and trying to process all of this, I know that it's a good thing for me, and I've learned an incredible amount. I don't regret any of it. I mean, I now know what that mountain is, and it is big, and it is incredibly difficult. It's beautiful, and it's all those things, but it's a beast, So when I go back there, I have that experience to draw from. So, I mean, to answer your question, I think, probably more people than I think a lot of people just don't really talk about it that much. But, I have the same piece in me that other people do, where it's like, I will go until someone physically stops me. And so that guy probably saved my life, because on the upper mountain that we were about to get to, there's this ridge, and it's 2 feet wide, and it's a 5,000 foot drop on one side and a 3,000 foot on the other. And there's no room for error. Like you don't place your foot right. You can't turn your foot right. And you take not only yourself down, but you're tied to 2 other people on a rope. So it's not just my life that I would be putting in danger. It's the lives of other people. And so that became really clear when we're looking up at the ridge, and I'm seeing the upper mountain for the first time. And I'm like, okay, this is not a good idea. I'm with you. I agree with you. After I was crying and all the other things I was doing, like, I don't fail at thing. I went through that whole, I'm not real proud of that moment, but I also know that I needed to have it, because I haven't not summited one of these big mountains yet. I have just accomplished everything that I set out to do. So, tough on the ego, tough on the whole thing, but good for me, because I really understand now that none of this is guaranteed. You can plan all you want to and train all you want to, and the weather can stop you, or you get sick, or there's a million things that can. And I think that's part of the appeal to me and the draw to me. Multiple people up there told me that, this is my 5th time on Denali. This is my 6th time on Denali. I'm like, Lord, really? I'm like, oh my gosh. But that it takes people an average of 12 attempts to make all 7. And, so, the all of that clarity I needed to have,
Oh, well, wait a minute now. So it takes an average of 12 climbs for people to have climbed all of the 7 peaks. Is that correct? Wow.
Yeah, so that means you're doing one or more of them multiple times for multiple reasons, So it's extremely unusual for somebody to get hit all 7 on the first try. And, I'd heard that before, but I'm like, yeah. But, I'm going to do it. And so it's like, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the way that it's, however this is lined up, and whatever is the master plan for me to hopefully get this done. It's happening exactly the way that it's supposed to, not to sound weird, but,
In retrospect and looking back, not accepting the or not counting the guy with the frostbitten feet, climbing with a major injury like that, was it foolhardy? Was it stupid, or was it powering through? Or how, looking back on it, if you had known that the foot was broken when you headed out, would you have done it anyway?
That's a question I don't know the answer to yet. I really. Probably not, because my doctor told me, he said, if you had been in here with me, I would have told you it's broken. I would have told you it's a really bad idea to go. So I probably would have wavered for a few days, and then I probably would have made the call and not gone, which is exactly why I didn't go see him beforehand. So,
no need to involve experts in this at all.
Right. I mean, why do that?
You had also told us that Denali was one where you had to carry all your own packs. Did that make a difference because of the weight you had to carry, as opposed to maybe another climb where somebody could have helped you with that?
Yeah, it totally made it. I mean, it just makes it so much more difficult. And I had never had a sled behind me with that kind of weight. And so you're going uphill, and that's just navigating that and attaching the pack and all of the things. And then you have to be all connected in, so that there's crevasses all over the place, like massive crevasses, and you kind of don't know. You can step on some snow that looks like snow, and you go down in one of these things. And so, the way that you have to be connected, so that if you fall in a crevasse, you can get your pack off you and get your sled off you without losing them down in the crevasse, because that's your food and your fuel and your sleeping bag and things you need to have. So that whole system was very intricate, and honestly, it took me a couple of days to get the hang of how to clip into all this stuff. But to answer the question, yeah, because whatever my pack and my sled weighed is what it weighed, and I had group gear and my own gear, and there's nobody. I can't even ask anybody to help me, even if I would have wanted to. So I think on another mountain, you have a porter that you don't have as much weight. Maybe I could have gotten a little bit farther, but I don't think based on what was coming on that upper mountain, it would have mattered, because you ditch the sleds up at Camp 3 anyway, and the rest of the way you don't have a hugely heavy pack, and you don't have a sled because it's so steep. Nobody could navigate up that thing with that much weight. So it made a huge difference, and that's the reason this mountain is so difficult. And it really became clear to me that on the way down. So what happens is I'm at the tent, and then David, the other guy, and the guides leave to go up, to summit the next morning. And I have to wait in the tent, for another summit team who's coming down to kind of pick me up, because you can't just walk out of this place. Like, you have to have multiple people with you in case you fall or whatever. And so this major storm was coming in, and you have to get all the way down this thing with more weight. And then you have to stop and pick up the group gear that was buried along the mountain along the way. And we had lost 3 people. And when those 3 people left, they didn't carry all their share of the group stuff down. So it ended up on my sled. So I ended up with like 80-pound sled and a 60-pound or 65-pound pack on the way down, and through the snowstorm. That was the hardest day. It was 10 hours of just grinding through this snowstorm, where it's like everything's white and you start to get vertigo because you can't tell up from down. It was the strangest thing I've ever experienced in my life. So it made a huge difference.
This sounds like a tough mountain, whether you're injured or not.
Yes.
I mean, if you're in one piece, this still sounds like you're really waist deep in it when you head up to this thing.
Yeah, the success rate, I think, this season was only about 30% made it up to the top. So the other big factor this year was just the weather windows to get to the summit were so small. So there was teams that were pinned down at the upper camps for 6-7 days, and they ran out of food and fuel, and you don't have an option. You have to go down. You're not going to live. You got to turn around at that point. So, and then there's just a lot of people up there that physically couldn't do it, and the guide said, "You're not going to make it. I'm turning you around." So it was but 2020, there was no season because of COVID. And so I think there was a lot of people up there that shouldn't have been up there, myself included. Now that I look back, I shouldn't have been up there either, but I was. So
in retrospect,
but this is why a lot of people say that this is harder than Everest for this reason. And a lot of people wait to do this one last. And my buddy David ended up getting up to the summit, and he was the only one on the team, so he made
So
it.
Are you, I'm curious about so many things about this. In seeing what you have seen of Denali, it stacks up against the hardest of the mountains you've seen so far, I suppose.
It is the hardest.
Really?
Yeah. I've never seen it. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that. And I knew that going in, but you don't really understand it until you're in it, and I didn't even see the really tough parts. I mean, it's harder than anything I've ever done, but I still didn't see the really tough parts. That's the crazy thing. The upper part of that thing is nuts. So,
and you did this epic trek back on your injured foot.
Yeah.
Which is the other thing I wanted to underline. I was listening to your trek and hurting, because I was thinking, okay, she doesn't know up from down. That's got to be fun, but also you're dragging you're carrying 140 plus pounds, either on you or behind. I just thought, I would give you as much credit on this podcast as I could.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it because that's when I knew something was really wrong, because it was really bothering me. And I was starting to, I could tell how weak it was, and I was starting to roll my ankle and, on the unstable parts. And so, I knew. And it's an interesting, because there's no option. Like, I have to keep walking out. There's no one to help me carry things. There's no helicopter that's going to come pick me up magic. Like, so I really went through some, when I look back, some really good mental stuff, because I had to get myself in a place of just step, step, step. And I remember repeating to myself, because you got to do something to keep your mind off the pain of it and the suffering of it, because that's what it is. And it's, you can do it. You can do it. And I think I said that for 3 hours straight.
Oh.
Just, that's all I could come up with. And it worked. And I was like, okay, great. Like my kids or my family, I wasn't thinking about any of that. It was just like, get me through this. So
It sounds like getting down from the mountain is as treacherous as going up.
it is. Yeah, it is for sure. That's when most of the, especially on the upper mountain, that's when most of the injuries and deaths happen. I mean, people die up there, they slip, they fall, they go in a crevasse or whatever, So it's really, the summit is really only the halfway point. And I really, even though I didn't summit this one, I really understand that now.
Do you think maybe when people get to the summit, they kind of let their guard down a little bit? All right, I've summited, and now they've got a tough way back, but they're maybe not paying as much attention.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens to people. They get, they get the summit fever, and they might know in advance, like, I don't have it in me to get up and down. They're just thinking about, do I have it in me to get up, and then they get sloppy, and because you're tired, you're exhausted by that point. You can't really stop and eat and drink. You just, have to go. And summit nights are for 12, 14, 17 hours, sometimes straight. You're going, without really stopping much. So
I was amazed to hear that you're going to Antarctica. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I was supposed to go to Indonesia in 5 weeks. That has been planned for a long time, and that's one of the 7. And right before that, I was going to go out to that's more of a rock climb. So I was going to go out to the Tetons and train with my coach, which I was really looking forward to. And that would have been like in 3 weeks from now. So the COVID has the borders of Indonesia closed. So that trip is canceled, and there's no reason for me to go to the Tetons with a foot in this condition to train for something I'm not doing anyway. So that's canceled. So the next one is Antarctica, and that was rescheduled from, I was supposed to do that in January, but COVID blew that one out. So yeah, and it falls over Christmas, and that wasn't the original plan. But the government rules in Chile say that we have to be there for 4 days before we fly to Antarctica to have negative COVID tests. So I will be traveling en route to Chile over Christmas, which my kids are trying to wrap their head around. But that's one of the sacrifices I'm making, and we'll do Christmas early. And it's so difficult with these mountains because you can only climb them at certain times during the year. And so the schedule just keeps getting stacked up and then blown out, and then you redo it. And I went through a time when I got home from Denali where I was like, there's too many obstacles. Like, now I've got to do this one again, and I've got to, the whole thing has to happen again. And it's just not worth it. And what am I doing? I went through that, my re-entry after climbs is always challenging. When you get back into your normal environment, it's hard to describe. It's challenging. But I found out when you don't summit, and it's worse.
Well, so are you describing a kind of a letdown, even a mini depression after finishing one of these?
Yeah. And it's what it really is. I finally understand. It's physical exhaustion is what it is.
Yes.
But it shows up as all these other things where, for someone like me, I'm like, okay, I got to get back into running the business and kids and all the things in my life. And I don't have the energy to do it, but I keep trying to push myself through it. But it's this, it really, I after this one, I'm like, I'm not making any decisions. I'm not going to analyze how I'm feeling. I'm just going to sleep as much as I can, as often as I'm going to sleep, and I'm going to eat, and I'm going to take warm showers. And so I think that's all a part of this, that you get better at that too, where it doesn't annihilate you as much, or you just surrender to it, I think is really what I'm starting to understand. So yeah, I think it's Antarctica is the plan, and that's like a mini Denali. So there's sleds, there's, you're self-supporting on carrying your stuff. You just don't have as much stuff because it's not as long of a trek. But really looking forward to seeing Antarctica. Like, it's not a place I would ever say I'm going to go, in my life. So,
Of course.
so I'll be with, another group of people and some people that I know. And then, I'm looking at, I'm already signed up to do Denali in June again. So, I was not going to do it but I have to. I have to go back and I have to do it as quickly as I can, because I want to be as close to the memories of that experience to be able to draw from. You know what I mean?
Sure. Your gathered wisdom from the first time up. How many children do you have, and what are their ages?
I have 2 boys. Jackson is 12 and Jacob is 17.
So, and they, when you told them, well, mom's going to be climbing a mountain for Christmas, I guess they were staring at you like, Mom is crazy again.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, my husband is on board with me. He's like, yeah, we'll just do the whole celebration, a week early. And people do this all the time. People that work on Christmas or whatever, it's just not something that my kids are used to. And I'm the center of it, like a lot of moms are with the whole thing that goes along with Christmas. And so they're easing into it. And by the time we get there, they'll be all right with it. But tough because I keep running up against this whole, like, is this the right thing? Is this the right path for me? This just doesn't make any sense on so many levels. But yet, I was having a talk with my dad, and he's like, "There's always going to be stuff in the way, Julie. You don't understand. If you don't do this, you're going to look back and regret. You just will, and you're going to run out of time." He's right.
Well, you not only have a family to support you, but you also run a business. You run a hearing aid franchise in Pennsylvania here. And are those people equally supportive of what you're doing?
They're amazing. Yeah, it's helped me delegate more than I know that I ever would have. Every time I go away on one of these trips, I'm not. I can communicate on my satellite device, but I'm not doing work stuff, So I've grown my team. I found amazing people, and I've been delegating more. And I came back, and we had an unbelievably successful month, and I had nothing to do with it. It was like, yay, okay. We did a huge campaign for the Miracle Ear Foundation. So that is the arm of the company where we give free hearing aids to adults and children who can't afford them. And the Denali campaign was, Summit for Sound was very successful when we raised over $40,000, and the offices had a lot to do with that. And, I had the summit sign, and I was going to take the sign to the summit. And David, the guy from Australia with the frostbitten feet, I was all down in my tent, and I'm crying and I'm upset, and this thing's over. And he's like, "What about the sign?" He's like, "Do you want me to take you to the summit?" I'm like, "No, you're not taking the sign to the summit." He goes, "Well, get out of the tent. We're going to take pictures of you right now with the sign." And I didn't want to do it because I felt like such a failure. And he was the one that reminded me. He's like, "You raised almost $40,000 to help people. Get out of the tent. I'm taking pictures of you with this sign right now." And I'm so grateful he did that because it put it all into perspective. Like, we're able to help so many people because of the fundraising piece of this, that it doesn't matter if I didn't hit the summit or not. It just doesn't matter. We were still able to help people.
And you had also, in a Facebook post I saw, you had a little inspiration from one of your sons as you hit the camp.
Yeah. So Jackson wrote me these letters for each camp. There was a letter, and it was sealed, and it would say Camp 1, 2, 3, 4. And he said, "Mom, don't open them until you get to you're set up in your tent at these camps." And so I opened Camp 1, and it's all this inspirational, amazing things. And then I get to Camp 2, and it's the same thing. And it's just incredible to me, the amount of wisdom that this child has. And all he really wants is me home with him. Like, it's hard for these boys when I'm away, especially Jackson being younger. And I sent him a message on the satellite when I knew it was over. And I said, and I'm looking at the Camp 3 and 4 letters, envelopes. And I said, "Should I open them?" And he said, "Yeah, Mom, open them." So I open them, and for the first time in the Camp 4 letter, he mentions, if you don't summit, then that's part of God's plan. And I'm reading this in the tent after knowing it's over. And then there's another envelope inside, and it's the Serenity Prayer, which he took a picture of this prayer that hangs in our kitchen. And it's all about accepting the things that you can't change, and courage to change the things you can, and wisdom to know the difference. And I mean, it was unbelievable. It was exactly what I needed to just kind of hit the reset button for me to say, okay, this is not the end of the world. Like, it's going to be okay. It seems like it now, but it's going to be okay. And I'm going to learn and grow from this. So yeah, the wisdom of a 12-year-old. Amazing.
Exactly. Julie, everything you say is sort of, I have 5 or 6 more questions, but one thing I really wanted to talk to you about was training. I regard you as a super athlete. Super athletes do super things, and of course they're always in training because they're either going to do something or are doing it. And so here you are, you're doing mountains every 6 months or every year. So I'm thinking, all right, you're injured now, and I think of you. Are you still wearing a boot? You are, aren't you?
Yes. Still.
All right. So can you tell me about training at this stage of things? Because there must be a very delicate balance between allowing healing to happen and still pursuing certain aspects of the training you have to do for your December jaunt.
Yeah.
Jaunt.
Yeah. It's almost a relief that this Indonesia climb blew out, really, honestly, because I don't, that wouldn't have been a good idea. But yeah, and I mean, I as soon as I find out it's broken, I've got to be in the boot. And initially it was like, let's look at it in 2 weeks. And so every week I've been going back for x-rays, and it's going to end up to be 6 weeks, which is the norm. And when you break your foot. And so I started, I only took about a week where I didn't do anything, because I know myself well enough. I'm very all or none. And when I let myself get too far out of my routine with that, it's not good for me mentally. Like I do better when I'm in a routine of whatever training it is. So I was doing strength training right away, upper body with my strength coach, Kevin. And I wasn't allowed to do anything else. And then 2 weeks in, I was cleared to swim, but you can't kick your feet. So I would swim. It's not easy to swim without kicking your feet, I found out. So then I went overboard on my shoulders, and so I started having shoulder pain. So I had to back off that. And anyway, then I was cleared to swim and kick my feet. And I just got cleared this week to ride the bike without standing up. So I've still been training 5 days a week. It's just weird because it doesn't feel like I'm training because it's not like what it was. So I'll get the boot off on this coming Monday and start working with a physical therapist locally. And what I want to do is go right back up to Hawk with a pack, and I can't, I won't be able to do that. So I've got this team of, that my doctor, my coach, the physical therapist, and we'll write a plan that is very gradually ease me back into it. And, this happened after Kilimanjaro. I broke my other foot, some bones in my other foot, and I was in a boot after that. And I listened, I took the direction. I've never had a problem with my right foot since. So I know it works, and I have enough time. I have a good 5 months to get myself built back up. And my coach does not think that. He thinks there's a lot of residual training left in me. It's hard for me to believe that, but I've this whole time I've just gone with, I've got to trust the people that know more than I do, and I've got to listen to them, because left to my own devices, I will just re-injure it and end up back in the boot.
Is this pacing of your life now kind of imposed on you because of the foot?
Yes.
Is this pacing that's been imposed on you, do you think, a good thing? Maybe helping you regulate a little bit more and listen to your body, or are you still chafing at it and you want to break free?
No, it's been a really, both things happen multiple times throughout the course of each day, I'm finding, but it's been I've spent the most amazing time with my husband and my kids over the last, how long have I been home? 4 weeks, and doing normal things. And like normally on weekends, I'm on the mountain for 6-7 hours plus drive time. And when I get home, I don't have a lot left. We're ordering takeout. You know what I mean? Like, I'm exhausted, and I've had all this, like, I'm laying by my pool and I'm making dinner for the kids and we're going to the movie. Like, it's weird. I feel normal. It's kind of nice. And we're leaving for a vacation on Friday together, and I'll be in the gym every day, but it won't be for 6 hours. It'll be for 1 hour, and then I'll be with them. So yeah, you really need that when you're so deep in the trenches of the training and the goal and the thing, to step back from that at some point. You have to, and just go back to normal. It's not easy to make that transition, but it will make me stronger when I go back into training mode.
Is there an average cost for each of these attempts?
Good question.
If you could give us like a ballpark figure.
Each one's a little bit different. Everest is really expensive. And I saved for a really long time for this one, for that one. But there, some of them are like 5,000, some of them are 10,000. And you can do it a lot less expensive. You don't have to, I go with the best company I can find and the whole nine, because I can, and that's the way I've chosen to do this. So you don't have to spend that much money, but if you average them all together, it's tough. Vincent is really tough because it's this Russian bomber airplane. There's only one plane that can get you to the ice in Antarctica, and it's this Russian, not bomber, cargo plane. And the fuel to get for that thing is what drives the cost up. So that's, upwards of $40,000 to fly to Antarctica to do this. So yeah, not everybody can do that for sure. Most people on these climbs, I'm finding an awful lot of people have sponsors. And so that tons of their time is spent finding sponsors to help pay for the climbs for them.
How many of the mountains have you successfully climbed so far in your quest?
Of the 7, I'm still at 3. So I hit Aconcagua in January of 2020, and I haven't been on top of one of the 7 since. So so Vincent, the success rate on Vincent is pretty high. The weather is pretty stable. It's not like Denali where these, really insane storms can come in. And it's a lot more predictable, the whole thing. So I'm not going to say I know for sure I'm going to make it. I'll never say that again, ever. But I have a pretty good feeling about that based on my experience so far. And so, hopefully, yeah. And then Denali will be in June. And then my plan is to go to Australia next December and do Kosciuszko, which is kind of an easy one in my family, and hopefully my dad will go and do that one with me. It's just like a little hill, but it's one of the 7, and then I start gearing up for Everest in March of 2023.
It's amazing that you didn't start with the easy one. Build your way up.
I know it's this. There's 2 7 summits lists, and one of the lists made by the one guy is this Kosciuszko in Australia is the 7th summit. And this other guy came along and he said that Karsten's Pyramid is the 7th summit on Indonesia because it's on the shelf of Oceania. I don't understand all of that, but there's 2 different arguments about which one is the 7th. So you can do either one, and Karsten's Pyramids is pretty challenging, and Kosciuszko is really easy. So you can choose whichever one you want. Most people end up doing both. But in order for me, if it works out this way, that Everest is last, that's been my hope from the beginning, that's the last one. Then, that's why I started looking at Kosciuszko, because I don't know when I can get to Indonesia at this point. So it was Karsten's that I'm going to do that one. And now I'm changing and I can, because I don't really care which list I end up on. It's just a list somewhere that I don't even know if anybody ever sees the list. You don't get anything for doing this.
No, but it's wonderful to have another woman's name on lists like this. I think we need to have all the as much of humanity represented in these quests as we can.
Yeah.
Well, Julie, thanks again for talking to us. It sounds like you're on your way to recovery and that you'll be climbing again soon. And we want you to check in with us again after you've finally done Antarctica and maybe or once you have another shot at Denali, you can let us know how that one went. And good luck to you. I'll tell you, you're doing something that to me, sitting in my chair here in my house, is just astounding.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for your support, and it just means the world. I'm glad people are curious and interested in what I'm doing, and yeah, we'll stay in touch as we move along through the craziness here.
One other thing, let us know where people can go if they want to donate to the charity for your climbs.
Yeah, it's just the Miracle Ear Foundation. If you Google Miracle Ear Foundation, you can make donations right on that site. That would be very much appreciated.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks a lot.
All right, take care, guys.
And thank you for listening to the Musical Innertube. You can get in touch with us by sending us an email, musicalinnertube, all one word, @gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. John is @JTimPayne, Don is @DonRooney9. And our webpage is musical, that's musical spelled with 2 A's, innertube.libsyn, spelled LIBSYN.com. Now, if you're wondering where to find us, the Innertube is available on Amazon Music, Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio podcasts. You can like us and give us a good review on any of those platforms. And of course, thanks as always to virtual band Car Radio Dog for our theme music.